I served my country, followed the law, and asked for nothing more than peace in my own home. And yet, a petty, power-hungry HOA president named Luna took it upon herself to destroy months of a federal sting operation, just because she didn't like the way my Jeep looked. She cut the lock, towed government property, and cost lives and justice in one selfish act. The rage I felt. It wasn't just mine. It was righteous. It was earned. My name's Alexander Ruiz. I fix machines, rebuild bikes, and, on paper, I write software for a defense contractor. But what I really do is chase quiet. After years of bouncing between deployments and noisy city rentals, I wanted roots, somewhere I could sip coffee on a porch without hearing sirens. So when I found a tidy house at the edge of Oak Hollow Estates, complete with a detached garage and just enough lawn to feel normal, I signed the papers before the ink dried. It was perfect. The neighbors waved, the birds chirped, and for a while, I believed I'd finally found peace. I even parked my black Jeep, a matte tactical beast I'd custom outfitted for a side project with law enforcement, right in front, angled like a statue guarding my new chapter. But peace, as I learned quickly, has one natural predator, Luna Carmichael. HOA president, suburban tyrant, and self-appointed guardian of neighborhood aesthetics. The first time she laid eyes on my Jeep, she didn't see a symbol of discipline or security. She saw an eyesore. A threat to her HOA kingdom. I should have known then, when she frowned like I'd parked a tank on her roses, that my war hadn't ended. It had just changed locations. The first time Luna corrected me, it wasn't about the Jeep, not directly. It was about my garbage can. Mr. Ruiz, she said one morning, appearing at my doorstep with a clipboard and a condescending smile, per HOA guidelines, bins must be retrieved within 2 hours of pickup. I blinked at her, still in my sweatpants, coffee half sipped. It's been 45 minutes, I replied, confused. She tapped her pen against the clipboard like a gavel. Still, rules are rules. I laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. Days later, a formal violation notice appeared on my door like a scarlet letter. That's when I started noticing the pattern. My front porch light was too industrial. My garden lacked neighborhood cohesion. Even my mailbox, a standard black model from Home Depot, was deemed excessively severe. But nothing stoked my fury more than the letter about the Jeep. Unregistered tactical vehicle creating visual disruption, it read, in Luna's tight cursive. Visual disruption. That Jeep had helped catch more felons than Luna had planted petunias. And it was parked legally, on my property. I confronted her, calmly at first. It's part of a task force project, I explained. Local law enforcement is using it. It stays put. She scoffed. We don't allow military cosplay in Oak Hollow. Cosplay. I stood there, stunned, as a woman who'd never served a day in uniform or coded a line of defense software dismissed my work, my purpose, as a costume. That night, I paced. I drafted emails. I called Officer Vincent, who reassured me the operation was still secure. But Luna? She kept circling like a vulture, snapping photos from the sidewalk. That's when the outrage really set in, not just at her, but at the absurdity of it all. I'd fought overseas for freedom, only to come home and get fined for parking my Jeep too confidently. And if Luna thought she'd intimidate me into submission, she was about to find out I didn't back down. Not ever. For a few weeks, things were quiet, or at least, quieter than expected. I'd parked the Jeep in the exact spot Officer Vincent requested, padlocked the front wheel, and made sure to follow every protocol down to the letter. Surveillance data was streaming smoothly. The task force was closing in. And Luna? She had shifted her attention, or so I thought, to a neighbor's non-compliant birdbath. I allowed myself a moment of relief, even cracked a joke with Rick, the guy 2 doors down with the ring cam addiction. Maybe she's finally figured out the difference between community standards and a police operation, I said. Rick just laughed. Don't bet on it, man. Turns out, he was right. It happened on a Wednesday, one of those cloudless afternoons where everything feels deceptively peaceful. I'd stepped out to pick up a few parts for a motorcycle rebuild project, gone maybe an hour. When I pulled back into the driveway, something felt off. The Jeep wasn't where I left it. No lock, no vehicle. Just an orange cone, bright and ridiculous, sitting dead center in the parking space, and a sticky note fluttering on it like some passive-aggressive trophy. Code violation. HOA confiscated. At first, I stared in disbelief, thinking it had to be a prank. Then the horror set in. I bolted inside and checked the security cam feed. Sure enough, there was Luna, in broad daylight, marching right up to the Jeep with bolt cutters like she was starring in some suburban action film. Snip. Off came the lock. She even smiled at Rick's ring cam, waving before signaling a tow truck, unmarked, clearly sketchy, and gone within minutes. My heart sank as I realized the implications. That Jeep wasn't just a vehicle, it was an active surveillance node tied into a months-long sting. Cameras. GPS recorders. All in one high-tech package, now hijacked by a woman who thought a military-grade SUV clashed with hydrangeas. And for what? Neighborhood aesthetics. I called Officer Vincent immediately. His silence on the other end said it all. She cut the lock, he finally asked, voice low with disbelief. She towed a federal surveillance vehicle. Yes, I replied. She thinks she's fixing the neighborhood. That's when I heard it, the shift in his tone. Not frustration. Not confusion. Cold, focused resolve. We're coming, he said. And I knew in that moment, Luna had just escalated things beyond HOA letters and petty fines. She'd declared war on the wrong Jeep, and the wrong guy. The silence was louder than any siren. After Luna's bold daylight heist of my federally sanctioned surveillance Jeep, I expected fallout, rapid, loud, unmistakable. But for the next 24 hours. Nothing. No knock on the door. No sirens. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that sits on your chest and makes your heart race for no clear reason. I kept refreshing my phone, half expecting a call from Officer Vincent, half expecting another smug email from Luna pretending none of this had happened. Neither came. The Jeep was gone. No one knew where it had been towed. Not the local lots. Not the impound registry. It had vanished. That night, I barely slept. Every sound outside made me twitch. A creak in the fence. Could be her. A car slowing down. Maybe it was the cops. Or worse, the people that surveillance Jeep was meant to track. Were they watching me now, wondering why the stakeout vehicle had disappeared? The paranoia set in. I triple-checked my locks. Rewatched the ring cam footage like it held some hidden clue. I even walked the neighborhood at 2 a.m., looking for tire marks or any trace of where the Jeep had been taken. Then, just after dawn, a buzz. It was a text from Officer Vincent. One line, we found it. You're going to want to see this. No details. No location. Just suspense wrapped in cryptic urgency. By the time he pulled up in an unmarked SUV and motioned for me to get in, my adrenaline was already spiked. We drove in silence, winding through side roads and service lanes I didn't know existed. Every turn twisted the tension tighter. Finally, we reached a rusted maintenance gate tucked behind the HOA's landscaping shed. Officer Vincent stepped out, nodded toward the padlock hanging open like a secret waiting to be revealed. Ready? He asked. I wasn't. But I nodded anyway. Because whatever was behind that gate, whatever Luna had done, was about to turn this HOA drama into something far, far bigger. The second that gate creaked open, the smell of mildew and motor oil hit me like a brick. Officer Vincent led the way, his flashlight cutting through the overgrown weeds and grime of what looked like an abandoned HOA utility lot. Except this wasn't just some forgotten maintenance area. No, this was Luna's personal impound graveyard. There, in the middle of cracked pavement and crooked traffic cones, sat my Jeep, tilted, dirty, the driver's side mirror cracked like a spiderweb. The door was ajar, and the reinforced surveillance module busted wide open. The encrypted black box inside had been ripped from its mount. Tools scattered the floorboard. It looked like someone tried to pry apart government tech with a screwdriver from a kitchen drawer. I stood frozen, jaw clenched. It wasn't just vandalism, it was a full-on desecration of months of work. Luna hadn't just stolen a car. She had obliterated a federal surveillance operation, and all with the confidence of someone who thought they were rearranging patio furniture. Vincent knelt beside the Jeep, inspecting the damage, then glanced at me with a look that said this just went federal. "This isn't a tow yard," he muttered. "This is a rogue junkyard with a vendetta." We weren't alone for long. Another officer arrived, followed by a federal evidence unit. They began photographing everything: tire tracks, bolt cutter marks, even Luna's pink HOA clipboard tossed in a corner like a bad punchline. And then, like a villain arriving late to her own downfall, Luna appeared. Heels clicking, blazer buttoned, a smug smile plastered on her face as if she were here to welcome us to a bake sale. "Oh good, you found it," she chirped, as if she hadn't just committed half a dozen crimes. Vincent stood and leveled his voice. "Ma'am, step away from the vehicle." Luna blinked, confused. "Excuse me," she huffed. "I'm the HOA president. I have every right." "You have no idea what you've done," Vincent interrupted, voice hard as concrete. But she would. And it would start right here, in the muddy remains of her little empire. It wasn't rage that fueled me anymore, it was clarity. After everything Luna had done, cutting the lock, stealing the Jeep, obliterating months of sensitive surveillance, something inside me shifted. The fear? Gone. The hesitation? Evaporated. What remained was a sense of cold, righteous purpose. I wasn't just defending my own property anymore. I was defending the principle that no one, not even a petty tyrant hiding behind a homeowner's manual, gets to play judge, jury, and executioner. The following morning, I made my move. I gathered every shred of evidence: Rick's Ring footage showing Luna bolt cutting the lock, her gleeful Facebook posts about cleaning up visual clutter, the correspondence from the task force detailing the federal significance of the Jeep, and a full breakdown of HOA bylaws, which, spoiler alert, did not give her authority to tow anything without board approval. Then I filed an official complaint with the HOA board and met with Officer Vincent and Detective Sasha Lin to build a case for obstruction, tampering, and abuse of power. I wasn't backing down this time. I'd tried polite. I'd tried quiet. Now, I was playing her game, by the book, but with the kind of precision she never saw coming. The HOA board called an emergency session, and the community center was packed. Neighbors filled every chair, standing along the walls. There was something electric in the air, like everyone sensed justice was about to show up, and she was wearing boots. When Luna strutted to the front in her signature crimson blazer, clipboard in hand, she looked ready to spin the entire mess into a tale of heroism. But when I stood and played the Ring footage on the projector, her laughing, bolt cutters in hand, silence fell like a curtain. No more hiding behind regulations. No more blaming aesthetics. Just the raw truth playing on loop for everyone to see. And when Sasha Lin stood up and calmly read out the list of federal charges being filed, the hush turned into a collective gasp. Luna didn't speak. Couldn't. Her mouth opened but nothing came out. It wasn't just about the Jeep anymore. It was about every ridiculous fine, every fear-soaked HOA letter, every neighbor who had been bullied into silence. That night, for the first time, I felt something deeper than relief. I felt power reclaimed. And justice? Oh, she had finally arrived. After the meeting detonated like a truth bomb in the community center, you'd think Luna would lay low, lick her wounds, process the magnitude of what she'd done. But no. She resurfaced just 3 days later, dressed like a courtroom extra in a wrinkled gray suit, flanked by her oily new lawyer, Trent Maxwell. Trent looked like a used car salesman who read one legal textbook and decided he was ready for prime time, slicked back hair, oversized sunglasses, and a grin that screamed, "I smell camera time." Their impromptu press conference was held, where else, on the sidewalk in front of Luna's house, which now bore the quiet shame of a neighborhood pariah. With 2 folding chairs, a collapsible podium, and a microphone duct taped to a music stand, they looked more like open mic night crashers than defenders of the Constitution. "We're here," Trent began, smoothing down his tie dramatically, "to address the malicious misinformation and reckless overreach from local law enforcement and this neighborhood's own residents." I watched from my porch, coffee in hand, as he laid out a theory so wild it belonged in a Netflix docuseries. According to Trent, Luna was the real victim, misled by vague laws, misinformed about the Jeep's purpose, and, emotionally damaged, by my alleged entrapment tactics. She even claimed I had weaponized government ambiguity to make her look bad. I nearly choked on my coffee. The neighbors, now wise to Luna's theatrics, gathered in small clusters across lawns and sidewalks. Rick set up his lawn chair, recording with the same casual amusement you'd reserve for a raccoon in a kiddie pool. People chuckled. Someone passed around popcorn. A few even booed when Trent began suggesting the HOA's bylaws gave Luna immunity akin to diplomatic protections. It was a full-on circus. But the more Luna spoke, the more obvious it became, she wasn't trying to clear her name, she was trying to rewrite the story. She couldn't comprehend that her power had crumbled, her authority shredded like the notes she used to leave on mailboxes. And while she staged her last performance, the rest of us were already living in the next act. One without her. The moment the projector flickered on at the next HOA meeting, I knew vindication had finally arrived, and it didn't whisper, it roared. There, in high-definition glory, was Luna's smirking face caught on Rick's Ring camera as she strutted up to my Jeep, bolt cutters in hand, slicing through the wheel lock like she was opening a can of tuna. The room was dead silent except for the clink of metal hitting pavement and Luna's own voice laughing, as the tow truck driver dragged my government-issued vehicle off my property. The timing couldn't have been more poetic. Luna had just spent the last 10 minutes trying to justify her actions to a packed room, painting herself as a selfless crusader for community standards. Her words were flowery, her voice syrupy sweet, but every sentence she uttered withered under the brutal truth of the footage. When the video cut to her Facebook post, "Sometimes you have to break the rules to keep the streets clean" smirking face, the crowd exhaled in a wave of collective disbelief. Detective Sasha Lynn stood next, delivering the final blow. Calm and deliberate, she outlined Luna's transgressions: unauthorized towing, tampering with federal property, obstruction of an active investigation. Each charge hit like a gavel to the chest. Luna's face paled to the color of copy paper. Then Greg, once her timid board ally, rose and motioned to suspend her from the HOA presidency immediately. The vote? Unanimous. The woman who once fined neighbors over flower beds was now being ousted by the very community she tried to control. I didn't smile. I didn't cheer. I just stood there, arms folded, watching the same neighbors she'd bullied for years rise, one by one, to reclaim their voice. It was justice with perfect rhythm, the kind that doesn't just settle a score but restores balance. Luna wanted power. Instead, she got a lesson she'd never forget, delivered by truth, backed by law, and sealed by a neighborhood no longer afraid of her clipboard. The days that followed Luna's removal were bizarrely quiet, eerily so, like the calm before a summer storm. For the first time since I moved into Willow Crest, I could walk outside without feeling like someone was watching through their blinds with a notepad in hand. But beneath that stillness, I knew Luna was planning something. She wasn't the kind of person to go down without a theatrical encore. I just didn't expect it to arrive with legal stationery and public spectacle. It started with a thick manila envelope on my doorstep, courtesy of Trent Maxwell, Luna's infamously slippery lawyer. The letter inside was a mess of accusations, defamation, entrapment, emotional distress. According to their fantasy, I had lured poor Luna into committing federal crimes by maliciously parking a government vehicle on my own property. It was so outrageous, I laughed out loud, until I realized Luna wasn't bluffing. She was setting the stage for a lawsuit, not to win, but to claw back control of the narrative. A few days later, Luna emerged from her lair for a press conference outside the county courthouse. With Trent standing stiffly at her side in a cheap suit and mirrored sunglasses, Luna declared herself a patriot under persecution. She claimed she'd acted in the best interest of the neighborhood, protecting it from militarized vehicles and unmarked surveillance. The press tried not to laugh. One reporter openly asked if she even understood what obstruction of justice meant. Her answer: "It's what happens when you obstruct people's view with tacky jeeps." But the real hammer dropped that afternoon. The district attorney's office filed formal charges: unlawful towing, tampering with government equipment, obstruction of an investigation, and, thanks to the HOA audit, embezzlement. Turns out Luna had been submitting reimbursement claims for administrative necessities that included printer ink, private tow services, and even takeout meals disguised as board lunches. Thousands of dollars misspent, all under the radar until her arrogance pulled the spotlight. As the news broke, neighbors emerged from their homes, stunned and relieved. Even Rick, normally unflappable, just stared at the TV muttering, "Damn, she really went full cartoon villain." That evening, the memes exploded. Luna in jail orange, Luna photoshopped into Law and Order scenes, Luna being chased by jeeps. It was poetic internet justice, a community reclaiming its voice with pixels, punchlines, and a heavy dose of long overdue laughter. The emergency HOA meeting that Friday felt less like a neighborhood gathering and more like the season finale of a courtroom drama. Word had spread like wildfire about the charges, the press conference, the stolen Jeep turned federal disaster, and the community center was packed. Residents who'd never shown up to a meeting before were now sitting on folding chairs clutching popcorn, whispering with wide eyes. Reporters lined the back wall. At the center of it all sat Luna Farthington, visibly unraveling beneath a bright red blazer and forced smile. Her clipboard trembled in her hands, but still, she acted like she was in control. She wasn't. Greg, now acting HOA president, wasted no time. With a steady voice and a glare that could cut glass, he laid out a motion to permanently remove Luna from all HOA responsibilities and revoke her authority to make any unilateral decisions. Then came the vote. One by one, hands shot into the air, every board member, every neighbor with voting power. It was unanimous. For a second, Luna looked like she might combust. But what truly shattered her illusion of control was what followed. I was asked to come forward. Greg handed me a small plaque etched with the words, "In honor of community integrity, Alexander Jacobs." The applause that followed wasn't just polite, it was thunderous, rising to its feet like a wave of vindication rolling through the room. Even Rick let out a sharp whistle from the back, yelling, "Long live the Jeep." That night, I stood outside my home, looking at the Jeep now gleaming with its fresh coat of tactical matte paint and the new community-approved parking sign Rick had installed beside it, reserved for community watchdog. It was funny, surreal even. What had started as a simple effort to mind my own business had become a fight for respect, for peace, and for accountability. And I'd won, not just in court or through memes, but in the hearts of my neighbors. The same people who once kept their heads down now stood tall beside me. I hadn't just defended my driveway, I'd helped reclaim our entire street. In the days following Luna's dramatic downfall at the emergency HOA meeting, a strange calm swept over Willow Creek Estates, like the neighborhood itself had exhaled after holding its breath for far too long. But I wasn't naive enough to believe the storm was over. Luna might have lost her title and been publicly disgraced, but she was still scheming. Sure enough, just when we thought she'd gone silent, Luna re-emerged, this time flanked by her slick attorney, Trent Maxwell. He was everything you'd expect from a man who thought charisma could outshine ethics: flashy suit, toothy grin, and a voice trained more for courtroom theatrics than legal substance. Together, they filed a counter-suit against me, the HOA board, the city, and, absurdly, even the local police department. Their claim: that I had baited Luna into removing the Jeep. That the signage and the lock were misleading, and that my silence about the vehicle's covert purpose was somehow entrapment. The media ate it up, briefly. Trent hosted a small press conference outside the courthouse, trying to spin Luna as a crusader wrongfully vilified. But if they thought the public would buy that, they were sorely mistaken. Within hours, clips of Trent's statement were meme-ified online. One creator even edited his press conference into a fake trailer titled Karen, the Final Delusion. Still, the stunt forced me back into legal mode. With the help of Detective Sasha Lin and Officer Vincent, I gathered every shred of evidence I had: video footage, HOA documents, email threads, and eyewitness accounts. Rick even offered to testify, gleefully providing screenshots of Luna's many inflammatory posts. When we walked into court that week, we came armed with truth. Trent came armed with drama. It didn't work. The judge, clearly unimpressed, dismissed their lawsuit within 15 minutes, calling it frivolous and lacking merit. As Luna sat slack-jawed beside her attorney, the courtroom audience, composed mostly of Willow Creek residents, erupted in spontaneous applause. The legal system, much like our community, had finally seen through her facade. That night, Rick hosted a lawsuit dismissal barbecue in his backyard. Neighbors brought burgers, kids played cornhole, and someone even brought a cake shaped like a Jeep with the words "Case Closed" written in frosting. For the first time in what felt like ages, there was laughter without tension. Joy without suspicion. We weren't just celebrating a legal victory, we were reclaiming our peace. And it felt damn good. When I pulled into my driveway the morning after the final court ruling, something strange caught my eye. There were balloons tied to my mailbox. Not just one or two, but an entire bouquet, red, white, and blue, with a handwritten sign taped underneath that read, "Reserved for heroes, and tactical eyesores." I laughed, shaking my head. It had only been 24 hours since Luna's last desperate legal swing had been swatted down in court, and already the neighborhood was celebrating in style. Later that afternoon, the real surprise came. Rick knocked on my door, grinning like a kid with a secret. "Come on out," he said, "you gotta see this." I followed him down the block to the old HOA maintenance lot, the same place Luna had stashed my Jeep when she illegally towed it. But it didn't look like a graveyard anymore. No. It had been transformed. Neighbors had cleaned up the weeds, hung string lights across the fence, and set up folding tables filled with snacks, lemonade, and grilled food. Someone brought out speakers and played classic rock. Kids ran wild with sidewalk chalk, and teenagers took turns posing in front of a banner that read, "We took our neighborhood back." Greg gave a short speech, declaring that the maintenance shed, once Luna's impound den, was being donated to the community as a shared space, a workshop, a tool library, a neighborhood repair hub. "And we owe it to Alexander," he added, nodding my way. I didn't know what to say. All I could do was smile and nod as people clapped, shook my hand, and thanked me, for standing up, for staying calm, for not backing down. That night, under twinkling lights and the roar of distant laughter, I realized something profound: Luna's tyranny had given us a reason to unite. And together, we'd built something better than any HOA rulebook ever could.